It's definitely rock music, I'd say, is pretty much the base of it. It does have some folk influence as well. People throw around the word indie. It's kind of a weird word, but I'd say, yeah, indie rock and folk is definitely the sound for me. There's a little bit of music that runs around in my family. I have some cousins and uncles, and my grandfather played and traveled and played music professionally for a little while. So that was probably the start of it. But then I also specifically have memories of, growing up in church and kind of seeing it there, and just having that desire to kind of play. And I always sang as a young kid. I always loved singing and beating on things that were not drums. So it was always just kind of around, I think. I picked up an instrument officially probably in the 5th grade. My buddy started playing guitar. I thought, he looks pretty cool playing that guitar. I want to look cool playing a guitar. So, naturally, I asked him, who he's learning from. I found the teacher. Every Wednesday night at church, just started after church was over, we'd just do a 30-minute lesson of guitar. And then soon after that, I was singing and playing. And, as soon as I started, it was all that I cared about. I gave up everything else.
So has the guitar always been your instrument of choice?
Definitely my main instrument, yeah. I do think now, growing up, I'm like, man, I wish I would have started maybe with keyboard, but guitar is it. It's the one that I play all the time. So
you were playing music in Pensacola, and why the move to Nashville, and why was that an important part of your life?
Well, I had just graduated high school, and I was looking into going to school, but the music school is so expensive. And so I'd already kind of had Nashville in mind for that purpose, and I'd already made some friends in town, and I kind of realized that I had no interest in doing anything else. I didn't want to be a published songwriter. I don't want to play in other people's bands. I wanted to make my music, and I wanted to play it for people, and that was all I wanted to do. And so to do that, I didn't really need the degree, but I needed to be somewhere where I was around people that had the abilities to enable me to do what I wanted to do. And the Nashville indie scene was the right place for that. And so I gave it a year here and kind of got myself ready to go. And then in May of 2018, I moved up to Nashville, and I've been there for 5 years now. Some of my earliest influences for music are definitely the Beatles and the Beach Boys. I think growing up in the car with my dad, all of that 60s classic rock came out very clear. And I loved the Beatles from a very young age, so they're probably one of the original, references for me of inspiration. I also think, now growing up, there was this whole phase in high school of kind of this internet culture, 2012 to 2016, this like Tumblr music that was being shared amongst these kids online, this like indie kind of music that really took over for me. And I see bands in there like the 1975 and even more popular artists like Lorde that were, running through that culture that I think had a huge impact on me taking music inspiration more personally and not just from what I'd heard from other people. I probably started writing music when I was 15 or 14, and I had a little setup at home so I could record stuff, and I would throw other parts on it, and that kind of expanded. But most of my writing is just done, me. So me and a guitar and my phone works out really well. And so I started doing that when I was 15. We started gigging those songs around town when I was 16. But you only have 2 or 3 songs that you're playing out that are original, so covers get into the mix. And so for 2 or 3 years, going up until right before I moved, we were playing cover shows with originals in the set. And that last year, I kind of told the band, hey, I know that we're used to playing a lot of shows around town, but I'm not going to do that anymore. We're going to play original shows only. So, we'd go from maybe playing 20 shows in a summer to just the 2 or 3. And it's a totally different vibe as well. Everything looks totally different. And yeah, that was a conscious decision I made because I knew that as fun as it is sometimes to go out and play those cover shows, it wasn't benefiting me at all. And what I needed to be doing was kind of honing in on those original sets.
So tell me how you do it. How do you create a song? How do you start? What's your process?
If I'm lucky, I just get to sit down with a guitar and pull out the voice memos on my iPhone, and in 30 minutes something just pops out. But that is getting rarer and rarer as I get older. I used to feel like that was just all it was. Now I try a bunch of different stuff. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's just me and my phone. I don't have an instrument with me. Driving in the car helps a lot. If I'm working on something that I can't quite get right, I'll just go take a drive and voice memo and just sing into my phone. I think for me, even though I grew up playing guitar, my voice is kind of my strongest instrument and my easiest way to communicate. So I throw everything in voice memos, or sometimes it just starts with a lyric that goes in the notes app, and then just consciously kind of going back to that stuff and looking it over, and all of a sudden you have this kind of pool of inspiration of all these different moments in time where you felt inspired to put something down. So it's much easier to recall that feeling when you need to, or when you actually have time to, if you kind of have this well of stuff kind of laying around. And so sometimes I use that, and it'll take a couple weeks to put something together, or 3 years. Some of these songs have been strung together over a long time.
You mentioned, how do you keep moving forward at your age? First of all, how old are you, and how do you keep moving forward?
I just turned 25 this year in August, and that actually is a pretty tricky question because it is hard. I think part of me can't help it. I think I've built these routines now, like we were talking about, where when I need or when I hear something, it just goes to my phone. So the writing process is there, but maintaining, creativity and topics to actually write about. I mean, they're all around us, but it's hard to always be aware. It's hard to not kind of get caught up in day-to-day life. And I serve tables for a living, so I'm a pretty busy guy a lot of the time. It's hard to intentionally make time for this stuff, but this is what I want to do, and I think that truly I can't imagine doing anything else. So there's kind of this necessary part of it that it just has to happen, essentially.
In 2023, you produced a full-length album called Tunnel Vision.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, and why is that a significant part of your music now?
Yeah, well, I've always had this goal of just putting out a full-length album. I think that's how I consume music. It's how I've always consumed music since I was pretty young, is just from top to bottom listening to records. And all of my favorite bands that inspired me as I was growing up were releasing albums that I liked, not just singles, but albums. So I was like, I want to make an album where every song on that album is cohesive, it's coherent, and it's good. And that was exactly what we did with the record. It took about 3 years of work to get the writing done, and then another year of demoing and recording, and then probably another 6 months of all the stuff on the back end to get it out. But it came out, like I said, in 2023, and it's something that I'm the most proud of, for sure.
Well, tell us about the people that performed with you on the StudioAmped concert.
Yeah. All close friends, some that I grew up with. Chase Rogers playing drums. I've known since I was in the 5th grade, maybe, since he's a couple years younger than me. So I grew up with him here in Pensacola. And Nick Fair playing bass is one of my closest friends in Nashville, one of my first friends in Nashville. And we've been, friends mostly the entire time I lived there. And then about last year, we started playing the album out a little more, and I brought him on to play bass for me. And he's also a fantastic solo musician. He has a great project as well under his name, Nick Fair. And then on keys and singing backup, my partner Summer, who I've also been together with for 5 years now, and I love her to death. And she always plays a great role in helping me sometimes even edit lyrics or edit some stage performance stuff. She keeps me in line a little bit. It's nice to have somebody that I trust to give me criticism about what's going on stage and what to do. And on top of that, she's a fantastic player and a great musician, and she's an awesome part of the band.
So what is the next step for Paul Vinson?
Definitely working on some new music, which I'm excited about, but we put a lot of time and effort into this album, and we are gonna keep promoting it, playing shows, a lot of online promotion, and just kind of really leaning into connecting with with people outside of Nashville and throughout the U.S.